I bought Bitcoin, quote unquote, in the US and sold it for pounds. I turned the pounds into dollars, bought more Bitcoin, and it was just this like circle. And it was...
You found an infinite money glitch.
Basically, yeah. But so I got really into that, and I had set up bank accounts like around the UK to facilitate this. And I often met people in person. I actually gave not a discount. I was still making money, but like the spread was lower. People wanted to meet me in person. I was just in the library all the time working on my thesis. So that was my office, and people would just come with like bags of cash.
Did you ever feel like this is maybe a bit dangerous?
Well, yes, but later. So I did that for a little bit more than a year, and then the police raided my house.
Oh,
Wow.
well, there you go.
Yeah.
And that's when things felt dangerous.
Not the people that were coming with cash, just the cops.
Yeah. That part.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I guess the library feels sort of like not a lot of bad stuff happens in a library.
people
right?
Bad things
really
happen
cool.
in libraries, Frank.
Is that real? Okay.
What
Yeah.
happened to Ross?
Yeah. Yeah. That's fair. That's true. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I ended up selling Bitcoin to a criminal, right? I don't know who the people are that I'm selling Bitcoin to, but one of them was a criminal, and they had my bank information. They had my name and my bank information. So they actually set up a dummy account in my name and set up breadcrumbs. They set up a false lead for the police to find me. Like this was a major fraud. This was one of the largest frauds in like UK history. They were selling like fake stocks and bonds. And I guess with some of the proceeds, they bought at least one Bitcoin that I sold them.
Whoops.
So the police thought that I was involved with this, like nothing to do with Bitcoin. They thought that I was involved with this other,
Stocks and bonds fraud.
stocks and bonds fraud. So they raided my house. I was not there when they came, but I think like 20 police officers came, and they just like canvassed the neighborhood, spoke to all my neighbors, like, what's this guy up to? You know, they thought I was like the mastermind of some major scheme. So I never went home again after that, right? Like I heard what happened, and I never went home. I left the country, and I conducted interviews with the police over video call and phone calls rather than
Wow.
with handcuffs on, which probably would have been the case if like I met on their terms. So everything worked out in the end.
I'm getting chills.
Yeah.
Everything worked out in the end. In fact, and this was all on chain. All these transactions
Of course,
were on
because
chain.
there was nothing other than on
There was
chain
no
at the time.
lightning, right?
So I was able to explain to the police what I was doing and show them the transaction, show them the chat logs. But as part of this, they had to understand Bitcoin, right? Because they were like, you did this, that. And I was like, no, I just sold Bitcoin to somebody. They were like, what did you do? So then I had to explain the whole concept of Bitcoin and like how I was selling Bitcoin, because I was exploiting arbitrage, but it was actually like this great money.
John's here
and-
orange pilling the cops.
Right. Yeah. And teaching lessons on
you think
arbitrage
they-
and finance.
That's what it takes, though, right? Because at the time, they didn't know what they were talking about. They didn't know what they were looking at.
Totally.
So now one of the police officers, for a different reason, kind of related to grad school, like I wrote a book, and then I was invited to do, which is why I went to grad school, to learn how to write. So I was invited to do a book tour in the UK, but I didn't know if I was allowed back in. Because initially when I was going through the interviews, then they told me, like very directly, I asked them like, hey, I want to go back. Is that possible? And he's like, you'll be detained at the airport, and then we'll take it from there. I was like, okay, that sounds like no.
Right.
But
Sounds like not a good start if I come back.
but like 5 years later, then I got invited to go back, and I wanted to go. So I reached out to the lead investigator, who I hadn't talked to for like 4 years at this point, to follow up to see if everything, like, I don't know, if my name was cleared. And what he told me was he went deep down the rabbit hole, turned his life savings into Bitcoin back in 2014 when this investigation was going on. And because of that, retired early and was super grateful for the Bitcoin lesson. So he went out of his way to like
That's
clear the road for
bananas.
me to go back then. right? So he's like, I don't, I'm retired. I'm spending time with my family thanks to you.
Thank you so much.
Wow.
But I'm still in touch with them. Let me get in touch with Interpol, see if there's anything outstanding in your name, and like I'll vouch for you. Here's my personal number if anything.
We've got to get
comes
him
up,
on the
then-
show.
Yeah,
For real.
right.
That's a story. Yeah.
Yeah.